Good morning. We are on day 59 already, and we are still on Genesis 27. And I'm still gonna just spend some time on this blessing that Jacob pursued. And to what lengths did Jacob go to get this blessing? What did he do to receive this blessing? This morning I want to ask you, are you desperate to live and receive God's blessing, to live under God's blessing? You see, there was such a clear distinction in Abram's life. The Lord's blessing on Abram distinguished him from any other person. The blessing on Abram's life, going from Abram to the Israelites, to the Jewish nation of today, is so distinguished. God distinguishes His people by putting His blessing on them. We are the heirs of Abram, and that means that we are in a position to live under God's blessing, and God's blessing distinguishing us from others. God's blessing upon us distinguishes us and sheds His light on our lives, and that is why the Jewish nation seeks God's blessing. And we read about Abimelech saying to Abram, we can clearly see that God is with you. Can you remember? We read about Isaac, Abimelech telling him, make a covenant with me because I can clearly see that God is with you. God's blessing distinguishes you and me and sets us apart and says, this is my child. That is why Jacob did everything in his power. That is why Rebecca did everything in her power to make sure Jacob received this blessing. So let's just quickly look at what did Jacob do to receive the blessing. So read with me, and I'm in Genesis 27 again. It says here, he first of all had to go and get a goat, 2 goats from the sheep pen. He had to prepare a meal exactly the way his father liked it. He had to put wool on his arms and in his neck. He had to wear his brother's clothes. But let's read that, then you can see the facts clearly. Bring me some wild game and prepare me a delicious meal. So now Rebecca is telling him, yeah, bring me some of the wild game and prepare me a delicious meal, and I will bless you in the Lord's presence before I die. Now my son, listen to me. Do exactly as I tell you. Go out to the flocks and bring me 2 fine young goats. I'll use them to prepare your father's favorite dish. Then take the food to your father so he can eat it and bless you before he dies. But look, Jacob replied to Rebekah, my brother Esau is a hairy man and my skin is smooth. What if my father touches me? He'll see that I'm trying to trick him. So Jacob went out and got the young goats for his mother. Rebekah took them and prepared a delicious meal just the way Isaac liked it. Then she took Esau's favorite clothes, which were there in the house, and gave them to her youngest son Jacob. She covered his arms and the smooth parts of his neck with the skin of the young goats. Then she gave Jacob the delicious meal, including freshly baked bread. So Jacob took the food to his father. "My father," he said. "Yes, my son," Isaac answered. "Who are you, Esau or Jacob?" And Jacob replied, "It's Esau, your firstborn son. I've done as you told me. Here is the wild game. Now sit up and eat it so you can give me your blessing." Now we see this funny story here that Jacob deceiving and lying to his dad and saying, "Yes, he is Esau," disguising his voice, disguising his body, disguising his homey smell or the field smell, going to great lengths to deceive his dad, to receive this blessing. He went to extreme measures, changing his voice, putting on wool on his skin, putting on his brother's clothes to smell like his brother, the wool on his skin to feel like his brother, preparing a meal exactly as his dad wanted it. And then he says, Isaac asked, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" And then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come closer so I can touch you and make sure that you really are Esau." So Jacob went closer to his father and Isaac touched him. "The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's," Isaac said. But he did not recognize Jacob because Jacob's hands felt hairy, just like Esau's. So Esau prepared to bless Jacob. "But are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "Yes, I am," Jacob replied. Then Isaac said, "Now my son, bring me the wild game. Let me eat it, and then I will give you my blessing." Okay. So we see here that Jacob desired this blessing coming from his father Isaac with all his heart. He used deceit. First of all, can you remember? He used deceit to get the birthright from Esau. And now he is using deceit to get the blessing. He knew the worth of the blessing. And we saw previously that Esau did not value the worth of his birthright, being the firstborn son. And I am very sure that Jacob could see the manifestation of God's blessing in his father's life, in Isaac's life, and in his grandfather's life, Abram's life. And I think that is why he so desperately wanted this blessing. Like we said, he went to extra measures to get the blessing. But why was the blessing so important? So very important to him. Genesis 27, verse 28 and 29. Let me read that to you. I'm reading the blessing again. From the dew of heaven and the richness of the earth, may God always give you abundant harvests of grain and bountiful new wine. May many nations become your servants, and may they bow down to you. May you be the master over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. All who curse you will be cursed, and all who bless you will be blessed. If we read the blessing of Abram again, we see, and I'm going to just give you the 7 parts of Abram's blessing. It was God Himself who blessed Abram. God Himself spoke the blessing over Abram. God Himself did not bless Isaac, but the blessing was passed to Isaac automatically through Abram. Isn't that very interesting? Now we see Isaac wanting now to pray for his son to make sure that this blessing is passed on. Abram did not pray specifically for Isaac, and it's not recorded in the Word. But Isaac wanted to pray specifically a blessing over his son. Abram's blessing was something God spoke over him, and these are the parts of this blessing. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, exaltation, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curses you. And through you, all the generations, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. You see, when God spoke this blessing, through this last part, through you, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. It means that it is automatically transferred to the next generations. It is automatically going to go to the next generation. But Isaac now wanted to make sure that this blessing is passed on to the next generation. And we read that he said, let me bless you before I die. He was determined to bless his children. He was determined to bless his son before he died, because he knew the significance of the blessing. If we now look at the blessing that Isaac spoke over Jacob, it is also a promise of abundance. The dew of heaven, the fatness of the earth, plenty of grain and wine speaks of abundance. Then he speaks of exaltation. Let people serve you. Nations bow down to you. You will be the master over your brothers, and your mother's sons will bow down to you. Exaltation. Just as the blessing of Abram, I will make your name great. And then this exact same thing. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. What was the effect of the blessing? We can still see up until today the special effect that the blessing of the Jews, the blessing of Abram had on the Jews. And we are Abram's heirs, and therefore we can have the privilege of living in the same blessing of Abram. And he was blessed in every way. There was someone else in the Bible who also desperately needed God's blessing, who desperately asked for God's blessing, and his name was Jabez. And it was many years ago. I was still working at Christian Art, and one of my colleagues used to go to America because he was in charge of the books. And Viv would every year go to America, go to the very big book conference that they had there. And every time when Viv came back, he would bring me some books that he received on his visit. And one year, when Viv returned, he brought me this very special book, The Prayer of Jabez. And it was a small little book. But man, was that one of the most significant and powerful books in my life. As I read this book, and I realized the powerful significance of God's blessing on my life, I began to seek God's blessing just like Jacob. Seeking God's blessing because I realized the power of God's blessing on a person's life. That book changed my whole life. That book changed my perspective on my own life in such a tremendous way. And if you haven't read The Prayer of Jabez before, I want to really encourage you to get a hold of that book. It's a small little book. You will find it in any Christian bookstore, and especially in Kum, you will find it there. Read that book. You will see how it will change your perspective on God's blessing. So Jabez was born, and his name, he was born, and we read his story in Chronicles. In the middle of the genealogies, God stops and pauses to speak about Jabez. Jabez, and it says there, Jabez's name means pain, because when his mother gave birth to him, she had tremendous pain when she gave birth to him, and then that's why she called him Jabez, his name meaning pain. And so Jabez grew up with this heaviness of not experiencing blessing, but experiencing pain in his life. Up until a day when Jabez cried out, and the word says, Jabez cried out to the Lord and said, "Oh, that you would bless me indeed, that you will enlarge my territories, that you will increase my lands, that your hand will be with me and on me, and that I will not cause pain, but that I will be a blessing." And then the next verse, which is so wonderful, says, "And God granted his request." Oh man, God personally granted Jabez's request. Maybe today you feel that you are not living under God's blessing. Maybe today you are experiencing that you are not living in the full measure of God's blessing like Jabez did. Today can be your day that you start and you say, "Lord, please bless me indeed. Please change my life, change my destiny, change this around for me." Just like Jabez cried out to the Lord and said, "Oh, that you will bless me indeed." God personally blessed Abram. God personally blessed Jabez. And we're going to see in a few days' time, God personally blessed Jacob. Because as Jacob wrestled with God, he said, "I will not leave you until you bless me." My dear sister, my dear brother watching this today, it's time for you to become desperate for God's blessing on your life. It's time for you to meet the requirements of hearing God's voice and obeying His instructions. God's blessing is transferable and is automatically tied to our descendants if we ask God to bless us. Are you desperate for God's blessing today? Have you ever asked God to bless you? Have you ever stopped and paused and said, Lord, I need your blessing on me. Lord, I need your blessing on my life. Make today that day where you start to bless yourself. Numbers 6 verse 24. And if you know me, you know this is part of my life, part of my preaching, part of my lifestyle. Numbers 6 verse 24. Please take the word today and pray this over your life. And it's easy. You say your name and you say, Father, I pronounce your blessing of Numbers 6 verse 24 over myself today. That you will bless me and that you will keep me. That you will cause your face to shine upon me. That you will be gracious to me. That you will turn your face toward me and grant me your marvelous peace. That you will write your name all over my life. And that you will bless me indeed. In Jesus' name. You can ask God to bless you. If your parents have never prayed God's blessing over you, you can be in a position to ask God, just like Jabez, just like Jacob, to bless you. Use the word. Pray the word over you. Because Numbers 6 verse 24 is God's instruction to Aaron. This is how you will bless the Israelites. So that is where God speaks His blessing. So you pray that over your life today. I hope that today will be a day of transformation in your life. I want to speak God's blessing over you today. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause His face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. May the Lord turn His face toward you and grant you His marvelous peace. May the Lord write His name all over your life and bless you indeed. In Jesus' wonderful name. Amen. I pray today that you will pray this prayer. And not only for yourself, but also for your children, for your husband, for your wife, for your household, for your work people, for the office you work in, for the company you work for. Pray God's blessing. Become desperate for the blessing of God. Have a blessed day.